But I will say this. I wish my sincerest condolences to those two girls lost in that tragic accident. Okay? It is an absolute unfortunate situation, and there's more to the story that you're not getting. But when the time comes, I will explain it in greater detail.
We have a shocking new update in the case of an internet streamer who allegedly ran over two teen girls on purpose, one of whom he allegedly stalked for weeks. The attorney for one of the victims says the suspect swatted the girl twice, just days before he allegedly killed her and her friend with his car. Then he went on a live stream playing a baseball video game talking about what happened.
In a neighboring town, unfortunately, two girls were killed in a hit-and-run crash.
Now there are big questions for the authorities. What did they do after the suspect allegedly swatted the girl, and why at this point has he not been charged as an adult? We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. From the moment two girls were hit and killed by a speeding car in northern New Jersey on September 29th, people in the community said this was not an accident. They say, allegedly, this was a planned attack. And now the family attorney for one of the girls that he allegedly killed is going public with some major claims about previous incidents that he says happened in the days leading up to the alleged double murder.
And there's more to the story that you're not getting. But when the time comes, I will explain it in greater detail.
That is reportedly 17-year-old Vincent Battiloro. That was a video on his YouTube account. He is the suspect who allegedly killed two of the girls, reportedly. He then went on the internet to talk about what happened. Now, on the internet, his username is VinnyBat118, and he live streams himself and his friend playing a baseball video game. NJ.com first reported his name after confirming it through traffic tickets. He is now charged with 2 counts of murder. Right now, he's not playing video games because he's in custody, but he's not charged as an adult. He's just 17 years old, and that's creating some frustration in the community of Cranford, New Jersey. That is the town that was home to Maria Niotis and Isabella Salas. Both were 17 years old, and on September 29th, they were riding home from a school event when they were hit by a speeding black Jeep Compass. That's according to police. The driver then allegedly took off. WPIX TV took this image from their chopper of the crime scene on Burnside Avenue, just a casual street in this northern New Jersey suburb. A hit and run that killed 2 people would be tragic no matter what. But what made this story so much more infuriating and terrifying for so many people is that soon after the crash, neighbors and family members went public saying this was not allegedly an accident, this was not random, this was a murder, because Battiloro had allegedly stalked Maria Niotis. He reportedly didn't know Salas. She was not his alleged target. Now, before I get to the new bombshell information from Maria's family's lawyer about previous alleged incidents they say happened before the alleged double murder, it is important to hear what Battiloro said on one of his live streams just 5 days before he allegedly killed these 2 girls. Hey, before we get back to this episode of On the Case, one of the most watched shows on YouTube, I need to take a moment and talk about our partner and sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. They have more than 1,000 attorneys, and they win a lot. They've recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients, and in just the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That's 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. And another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million. That's after being offered only $500,000. Even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to start a claim. You can do it with just 8 clicks on your phone. So if you've been hurt and you need to start a claim, go to www.forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also scan this QR code on your screen or click the link below.
So we're going to try to do this. I don't know if it'll work. The place closes at 12. But here's what we're going to do. I think Maria's hungry. I think we're gonna send her a pizza. Cheer her up. So, y'all know I have a vengeance against this girl for accusing me of sending. I'm gonna call a pizza to her house, and here's how I'm gonna do it. So I told you all that I bought the brand new iPhone 17 Pro Max the other day, and I'm gonna be using this as my main phone now. Better camera to do vlogs on. But in the process, I still have my iPhone 16 Pro Max. And here's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be converting this as a burner phone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call Domino's. And I'm going to have a pizza sent to her house. And I'm going to tell the guy the driver will be paid cash at the door. Yes, cash at the door. So, Fula, or my dad wants to call you Falula, don't fool me, stupid name. You should not have accused me of sending porn. And you should not have dragged me into creating a police report. So, Fula, you made a bad decision making a bad name of myself. You made a bad decision having this girl return to that store without me being there. I think you're hungry. We're gonna send you a pizza. Okay?
Now you hear him say that he has, quote, vengeance against Maria. Again, it was 5 days later he allegedly killed her and her friend with his car. The Niotis family lawyer told Fox News Digital that Battiloro allegedly swatted the Niotis family home twice in the month of September. Now that's the alleged prank where someone makes a phone call to emergency services and then has law enforcement respond to the home of their target. It's certainly annoying, we see it a lot, and it's also incredibly dangerous. The attorney for Fox News Digital says that Battiloro did it allegedly twice. Once was on September 1st and the other on September 15th. Now, the first time, police did not show up to investigate, but the second time they allegedly did, according to this attorney, and when they arrived, Battiloro was actually parked outside the house. Now, it is unclear what happened in these events. We're working to learn more information on that. It's also unclear if these are the only times that the family had been harassed allegedly by this teenager. Here's another comment that Battiloro made on a live stream about Maria a couple months before he allegedly killed her and her friend.
And she's getting her whole team to gang up on me. If I saw her in real life, she would be scared to even see my face, okay? And I only say that because somehow, some way, you know, I guess the brother of her got the report and said pull up to the house. When I said I would, the brother got all scared and backed out. Like a scaredy cat. He's dumb. Okay, he went back. He got all scared and backed out and said, I really don't want to fight. And then the girl in the body cam said, I don't expect you to realize how scared I am because he threatened to hurt me. So the brother said, come to the house. It's not worth my time.
Now, Battiloro says he has body camera video of an incident from police that he put on his Instagram and told people to go over to what is now a deleted profile for what he calls exclusive content. We're working to get that body camera video ourselves. Now, if what is being alleged in this case is true, it's hard to find words to describe just how awful it is, how shocking it is. I mean, frankly, if this is true, this teenager is unhinged. Maria's uncle went on social media and he called him a psychopath. Now, let me walk you through what Battiloro did on this live stream after the alleged murders he committed. Apparently, it was no secret that Vincent may allegedly have something to do with Maria and Isabella's murders to people who follow him online, because after the alleged murders, he did this live stream and people were in his comments linking him to the case. Here is Battiloro responding to a comment that said, quote, bro, you killed my best friend.
I don't need negativity in this stream, so everybody's getting timed out.
Then people start calling him a killer.
Killer.
Huh?
I'm thinking maybe another way that we can do the stream.
He then turns off the comments and allegedly makes a statement about what happened to Maria and Isabella as he is about to stream a video game.
But I need to explain some things that have happened over the past few days. And I'm not going to talk much about it, but in a neighboring town, unfortunately, 2 girls were killed in a hit-and-run crash. Now, there has been a lot of misinformation going on over the internet. But I will say this. I wish my sincerest condolences to those 2 girls lost in that tragic accident. Okay? It is an absolute unfortunate situation, and there's more to the story that you're not getting. But when the time comes, I will explain it in greater detail. I'm not authorized to talk about the whole thing. I'm not going to give you any more information, but I will say this, okay? Making threats against my family will not be tolerated. My cousin has received hateful messages over social media about this whole spiel, and he's had to unfollow me on everything because of this whole drama. Why are you guys getting him involved? It's one thing, okay, if you hate me, you hate me. If you don't, you don't. You're opening up Pandora's box, getting family involved. And that just does not sit right with me. So I figured I'd make a statement about what happened. And I want to address something else, okay? Because this is a very serious incident that happened. And I really don't even know if I should be streaming this right now, but I have built a great following on TikTok with 39,000 followers that I have grown since 2020. And I want to thank each and every single one of y'all. I love you all to absolute death. And regardless of what happens, if you don't see me streaming for a little bit, you'll understand why. But this will be in the hands of Jesus. Everything will be okay. I will get this sorted out. And I plan to keep continuing playing co-op with my best friend, Evan. He has stuck by me through the whole side, and I want to thank him for that. Without my loyal friend playing co-op with me, I wouldn't be streaming YouTube right now. So there's more to the story. But again, I'm not going to be authorized to comment on it. And I want to thank each and every single one of you guys that have stuck by me through this whole thing. And I want to address one more thing, okay? I really think there needs to be more done to address mental health in this state. Because, you know, I don't even know how to explain this, dude. I've been bullied, ridiculed, and stuff over false allegations, okay? Over this whole thing about things that have happened in the past. There's more to this story. It'll come out in the future, okay? And I'm going to let you all know this right now. I don't plan to go anywhere anytime soon regarding streaming. But again, if I do end up taking a hiatus, I'm telling you guys why. So, I really think New Jersey needs to do a better job addressing this mental health crisis because I've been through way too much. I'm a nice kid. I'm 17 years old with a good family by my side. And these allegations that have been ruining everything is a shame. But again, I'm going to leave it at that. I really think you all should be a lot nicer to each other. If anything happens, I'm going to give you all some advice. All right? If you get bullied and ridiculed in school about, stuff that people hate you, I would tell your counselor immediately. And, before the shit gets out of hand, you got to address all these things, because I'll tell you what, the amount of bullying that I've been put through in the past has been absolutely absurd. And I'm going to be honest with you, the state is not doing a right job addressing this mental health crisis. And I hope Shitterelli can fix this, okay? So that is all I'm going to say about this whole thing. I'm not going to talk about it anymore on the advice of loved ones and others. We're going to play co-op with Evan, and we're only going to do one game. And depending upon the next steps, I'll probably be live tomorrow, because here's the thing. I was originally going to start a school today, but with all this hoorah happening, it kind of screwed that up. So I plan to be live tomorrow. I don't know about Evan, but again, you're going to be seeing more lives coming in the future, and I will address this whole thing hopefully in the next coming days. So, Evan, if you want to say anything, you are more than welcome to.
He then goes back to playing this video game, and you just hear in his voice that it appears that this is just someone who thinks that he's in control of this situation. And frankly, it seems like he thinks that he is justified for what allegedly happened to these two young girls. Now, if what he is accused of is true, frankly, it is chilling to see that video. Battiloro was later arrested. He's now facing 2 counts of first-degree murder. Authorities have not released his name as of yet, because as we're recording this, he hasn't been charged as an adult. Again, he's 17 years old.
She wasn't just my daughter. She was my best friend.
That's Maria's mom, speaking at a vigil for her daughter and her friend per WABC in New York. Not only is there outrage over the fact that Battiloro is not yet charged as an adult, but also how he could allegedly continue to harass a girl and then allegedly kill her friend. What could have been done to stop him? New Jersey law states anyone under 18 cannot apply a restraining order against another person. Maria Niotis was 17. More than 7,000 people have signed a petition on change.org to get that law changed. Again, we're still waiting on when Battiloro could be charged as an adult. New Jersey law says that prosecutors have 60 days to file a motion that they want to move the case out of juvenile court. Now, it seems that prosecutors would have a strong case against Battiloro if he faces charges as an adult, if this case were to go to trial. The history of alleged stalking is certainly a key part of this. The murder weapon, allegedly, is the vehicle, the Jeep Compass, that law enforcement has. You have these live streams showing that he certainly had issues, allegedly, with Maria Niotis. So what would his defense be moving forward? Battiloro has claimed that he was bullied at school. He also says that more should be done to address mental health. What that could mean in this case, though, how strong a defense could it be? That's unclear. The community of Cranford continues to mourn the life of those 2 young girls. They were best friends, and they were just on their way home from a school event. They were seniors in high school. They had their entire lives ahead of them, and those lives were stolen, allegedly by a teen who appears to think he is in control, but that teen could soon learn that the criminal justice system is the one who will determine his future. Join us now to talk more about this from New Jersey is Bob Bianchi, former head prosecutor and former homicide prosecutor, now a criminal defense attorney. Thanks for being with us on Law and Crime. I know there's a lot of questions about why this case is not an adult court at this point. What would it take for it to be moved away from the juvenile court system?
So we shouldn't take anything by the fact that it's not in the adult system right now. That would not be atypical because he is 17 years old. What prosecutors would do, what I would do, is I want to have a full investigation before I go before a juvenile court, because right now that's where this offense is, and then argue to that judge that this case should be waived up to the adult court. So we don't get to that stage. There's a certain time period, I think it's 60 days from when the complaint is filed, for the prosecutors to make that motion. But we do that when we've gathered all the evidence so we can make the best presentation possible to the juvenile court to accept our decision to waive the case up to the adult court. In a case like this, it doesn't seem to be a hard call to make. This is a person who's over the age of 15. That is one of the criteria, over the age of 14, actually. This is a 17-year-old. If, in fact, this is a purposeful and knowing murder where there are 2 deaths, prosecutors are going to have excellent arguments to the court to say that this should be waived up and treated as an adult. And just last point, the distinction there being, if you're charged as an adult, the sentencing goes from rehabilitation of the juvenile, which is where it's at right now in the family court, to punishment and deterrence. In essence, a slap on the wrist to a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
What would you expect if his defense attorney was to argue that this should stay in juvenile court? What could that defense be?
Look, I mean, I've got all of the aggravating factors that they typically look at. I won't bore you with all of them because most of them go against the defendant in this case. In other words, good for the prosecution. The only possible factor here is a mental health issue that the defense could try to raise to the court, but it's not going to be successful on first and second degree offenses, particularly with murder cases, and particularly because he's just shy of the 18-year, the year of majority. The courts are not going to allow a mental health offense, in my opinion, to win the day in terms of waiver. Now, that may come into play as a defense to the charges down the road, but it's not going to, in my humble opinion, in all the years I've done this, stop a judge from waiving a case to the adult court when you have 2 teenage young girls who were taken out and their lives were snuffed by this individual. The case is going to be waived up. The defense has virtually little to no argument here.
And then looking at the stalking, alleged stalking that this suspect had on one of the victims in this case, the new reporting that's out that he allegedly swatted, so calling law enforcement to her house twice. It's unclear how many other times that had happened. And there's questions about a restraining order. If there's examples that police were called, that police were investigated, why wouldn't she be able to put in a restraining order against this suspect if, though he's 17 years old, I mean, if he's calling police to her house, that seems like a pretty dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, this is a tricky area in New Jersey. We've talked about the expansion of restraining orders. There are many people who call my practice daily who are looking to get restraining orders because they're in fear of something that somebody may or may not do. And basically speaking, up until just recently, the only restraining order you could get is for an act of domestic violence in which there has to be a dating relationship or somebody that lives with another person as a qualifying factor in order to even apply for a restraining order. Now, that's expanded now to some cyber crimes and things of that nature, but there are not, to my knowledge right now, for a situation like this in which somebody says, this person is bothering me, this person's a concern to me, to get an actual restraining order. What you can do, and what a lot of people do, is they file a criminal charge. Unfortunately, in this particular case, it's too late. If a crime had been committed, swatting, for example, stalking, certainly under those circumstances, you can get judicial orders to prevent that person from having contact with the victim. So from what I know from this story, what the victims are saying is that these things, stalking and in fact swatting, were occurring, and that had the police done an investigation and charged, at that point, they would have been able to get some sort of judicial relief where there would have been a no contact. But let's be honest here too. Those orders are important. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but if somebody's intent on doing harm to another person, in the end analysis, it's only a piece of paper.
Right, because that's, I mean, if what's being alleged is true, and he drove that black Jeep Compass and just tracked down these girls and hit them with a car, to your point, it's just a piece of paper, which is incredibly sad. Looking at this investigation, for his defense, if this gets waived up to adult court, and it seems like they have the vehicle, you have these YouTube videos where he's not saying he did it, but he's clearly talking in the past about having issues with a girl named Maria. So there was some sort of situation going on. How do you approach this if you're his defense attorney, and if there is strong evidence that he was behind the wheel of this car?
Okay, well, that's a big if, right? So, like, the number one thing I want to do as a homicide prosecutor is I want to put him behind the vehicle. And then look, here's where the defense is. And it's going to be both in the waiver hearing in the juvenile court, as well as in the adult court when, in my humble opinion, the case gets waived up there. And that is going to be, this isn't a murder. If anything, at worst, if you can prove he's behind the wheel, it's a manslaughter. Now, what is the distinction here? Because every state has a different nuance to this. In New Jersey, in order for it to be first-degree murder, which is charged right now, you have to prove that the defendant had a mental state, they call it mens rea, a mental state of purposeful action or knowing, which means you either intended it to happen or you did something that was practically certain. Those are the words that the law says, that serious bodily injury resulting in death would occur. It's almost, that's your intention. You did it, you wanted it to happen essentially, or you knew it was going to happen. If it was just a reckless act, that is, I didn't intend to do it, I had no intention to do it, I was driving recklessly, I was speeding, I was weaving in and out of lanes, I lost control of the vehicle, and it hit these two individuals and killed them, that's not purposeful or knowing, that's reckless conduct, and that reduces it to either aggravated manslaughter in New Jersey or manslaughter, which are significantly reduced sentences if he's convicted of those things. So I would imagine that if the proofs are solid that he's the person who drove the vehicle, because there are many cases where that's not solid, if it is in fact solid that he drove the vehicle, and they'll do lots of investigation to show who the driver was and tracking things down and electronic devices and ring cameras and street cameras and things of that nature. After all that, they're going to argue this was not a purposeful or knowing act. It was a reckless act, significantly reducing the sentence. In fact, manslaughter is a maximum of only 10 years in state prison.
If he's found guilty of murder, he's 17 years old. I mean, obviously it's a double murder if he was to be found guilty of it. I mean, is there any likelihood that he could ever get out of prison?
Look, I'm going to say this is very hard to answer this question because New Jersey, in my opinion, is still dealing with, and I'm dealing with a case right now from back when I was a prosecutor, where they're looking at juvenile crimes and sentencing, and before the age of 26, your mind isn't fully formed and things of these nature. So the pendulum keeps swinging back and forth. But I mean, you can imagine, I could just say this, if he gets convicted of murder, he's going to have two bodies, if you will. I hate to put it that way, but two people that he's going to be convicted of having killed. He's going to see the better part of his life in state prison. What's going to happen down the road? I don't want to predict because it keeps changing, the pendulum. It keeps swinging to conservative, if you will, and more draconian to, kumbaya-ish, let's give him a break. And hopefully a guy like this, if it's proven that he intended to do this at 17 years old, in my humble opinion, should be spending the rest of his life in jail.
Yeah, and I know that question's kind of put in the cart before the horse because we still have a long way to go, and even seeing if this is going to go into adult court, though it's expected to head that direction. You look at these YouTube videos, and when you look at it and you think about what he's accused of, it's just chilling to hear the tone in his voice, I think, because he's just so confident. It seems like he's in control. But at the same time, he talks about mental health. And when you're watching this, someone who allegedly just killed two people is almost speaking as if it didn't happen, or he was proud of he did. It just doesn't seem like that would be the person in the right mental state. Is that something the defense could use as evidence?
No, the prosecution is going to use that as evidence.
For sure.
Okay, the prosecution is going to clearly say that he's trying to make excuses. He's got no remorse. He doesn't have any insight into his conduct. In order for you to establish a mental health offense in the criminal law, it has got to be not only a psychiatrically documented offense, not only do they have to show that he was suffering from illness, I should say, that he was suffering from that illness, but that illness prevented him from really essentially knowing the difference between right or wrong or being able to conform his conduct. When he's making an excuse because he's mentally ill, what he's saying is, I recognize that, this is bad and this is wrong. So you can be mentally ill and still responsible for your actions. So I look at that evidence, to be honest honest with you, as kind of exhibit number 2 by the prosecutors as to show the judge why this person's not worthy of any kind of remorse. Last point. When you do this long enough and you've cycled through the various defenses and excuses and explanations over a career of over 30 years of handling homicide cases, we've gotten to a point right now where this is just the flavor of the day. You didn't see this 30 years ago where people were making, excuses and they're just so robotic about it and they jump to YouTube to talk about it. We've allowed a culture of young people to feel that they can act with impunity, that they can act and blame it on somebody else or something else. It can never be them, not accepting responsibility for their own actions, not feeling remorse, and everything is like a game today because their faces are buried in a phone rather than having human interactions. And I hate to sound like everyone's grandfather, but it's the truth. We've come to a chilling point right now where these kids don't even have any insight into their conduct, and they're always playing the victim card. And unfortunately, I have a funny suspicion this is yet another one of those scenarios.
Yeah, like an extreme version of it. I mean, it's just watching it and hearing the tone in his voice, and then he goes on to play a baseball video game. It's bizarre, putting it lightly, and then it's every word that you said beyond that. If he was to make an argument like, I was the victim of bullying, and bullying is a big deal. I mean, it's an issue in a lot of places. I mean, I guess what weight could that carry? I'm just trying to think of, because if it seems like there's so much evidence against him, and there's a long way to go in this, it just seems like, how can you show up in court and then try to argue it out? If you went on YouTube, you show you had an issue with her. If you were behind the car, you did it. It just seems like it'd be a really tough case for the defense.
Yeah, so let's explore one other defense. Let's I don't know where he's going to go with it, but let's assume he's using this bullying defense. I don't know. I'm going to play like what lawyers do. Okay, let's play the game what lawyers do. So as a prosecutor, I am anticipating what the defense is going to be. One of the potential defenses that I, in my creative mind, is going to come up with is that he was bullied by these 2 young girls, and he was bullied to the point where a reasonable person. I'm going to talk about passion provocation law here, where a reasonable person would have been provoked, that he in fact was provoked, that he had no time to cool off or actually collect his thoughts and to think properly. And he went out and he purposefully committed this act. He purposefully did this. Under those circumstances, if you can prove that his actions were reasonable, that the jury believes that a reasonable person would have been provoked, that in fact he was provoked, and that he was acting without the opportunity to cool off in the heat of the moment, as some put it in some venues, then he would be entitled to a passion provocation charge before the jury. Maybe an area I go. And what that means in real world talk is that it reduces the charge from a murder to a manslaughter. It takes out that mental element of purposeful and knowing, because you didn't have the opportunity to deliberate. You didn't have the opportunity because you were suffering under the passion of an excitable event that a reasonable person would have been provoked. What's the standard that we always use as an example? Somebody finds their wife or their husband in a bed with somebody else and they've got a gun and they don't think, and they shoot and they kill that person. That would be a passion provocation defense. Do I think that would hold true here in a case where a guy gets into a car, finds these 2 girls, drives the car and strikes them and hits them, that the jury's going to find that that was a reasonable provocation, being bullied, that he was provoked, and that he didn't have the opportunity to think and deliberate prior to committing the act? I think it's a stretch, but it's a possible defense. Sometimes as a defense lawyer, last point, you got to dance with the one you brought. Got to dance with the one you brought. I don't know. People don't go to dances anymore. But what that essentially means is, if this is the defendant you got, you throw every defense against the wall, hope something sticks. And then, of course, always the plea bargaining process, trying to convince prosecutors to plead the case out before it goes to trial.
Yeah, and we'll see how, there's a lot of long runway to go in this case. I mean, of course, we'll see next if it is obviously brought into adult court and where it goes from there. Bob Bianchi, it's great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for talking with us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.